Overall, Final Fantasy XVI is criticized for a lot of things, but it's funny, I don't find myself agreeing with a lot of what I hear online, despite having criticisms of my own. Generally speaking, I think the story is pretty good, and the biggest example of why is Clive Rossfield. A big part of his story is seeing him experience the worst of this world. He sees his kingdom fall to the betraying empire, a betrayal his own mother was a part of. We see his father, the king of Rosaria, and his prince brother, Joshua, Icon of Fire, both die as a result to this empire. And then we see him enslaved, already really shitty for him, but it doesn't even end there, as he continues to receive prejudice because of his status as a branded, and he internalizes this in a way that nearly anyone would. Revenge. See, Joshua was killed while fighting another icon in a big kaiju fight, because this is the thing that icons can do. They can turn into giant kaiju, it's really awesome. Need a reason to play the game, that's the one. But, he's killed. And Clive initially seeks out revenge, attempting to find his brother's killer. This is how he initially thinks he can overcome the years and years of pain he's been through. However, as ironic as it may seem, it turns out that he was his brother's killer. Well, he's the icon that killed his brother, didn't have control and all that. And so that leaves Clive into this incredibly difficult situation where he thought he could take out all of his pain on another person, but there is no other person. He could blame himself for what happened, but regardless of if he does, he's forced to confront his pain. This person that he thought he was, literally coming face to face with himself. This is something I'm sure we've all dealt with before. Well, not literally, but we've all questioned who we really are, if the pain we went through has been worth everything we've been working towards. And for Clive, it never was. At least that's how it seems at first. It's always how it seems at first, but after we remember that this isn't the first time we've dealt with this. I mean, Clive sort of gave up on himself when he was a slave, but something changed. He found one of his friends again, a friend that was there at his happiest point, and it reminded him of what he lives for. And so, after his literal confrontation with himself that most definitely has alternative lore reasons for happening, he tries to work himself back to a similar place, and he can do it because he has support. He has friends, old and new. And once he overcomes that part of himself, he continues to do so much more. He joins a rebellion and helps others in need. He eventually confronts the Empire, his mother, the ultimate suppressors of his and many other people's lives, and he's able to put all of it behind him. However, as he does, another suppressor surfaces, except this someone has a much larger sense of power, the literal god of this world, Ultima. And so, he turns from a protector of victims to a protector of people. Well, I guess you could say that he's a protector of people no matter what. But he also turns into a protector of the world. Seeing Clive do the most anyone has for Valisthea while also being a victim of it, the love and passion he shows for life is one that inspires me. I mean, maybe every day is a bit dramatic, but it does a lot for me. This is why, to me, Final Fantasy XVI is without a doubt a good game. It's just about people coming together to help others, and I couldn't think of a message more valuable than that. I love it. Now that said, I'd be lying if I said that Final Fantasy XVI doesn't also tend to struggle in a lot of other areas. The reason I spoke about Clive's story with such depth is because, firstly, to give context for later, but secondly, to show that the game's struggle is not within its core values. Final Fantasy XVI knows what it wants to say, and I feel a lot of people kind of miss that. Like, yeah, the themes of bigotry aren't very deep, but to me that's not the point of why it's in the story. To kind of go off a little bit, it's used as a mechanism to support the themes of pain and love that I talked about before, and it shows that when you play the side quests and stuff. The side quests are some of the best stuff in the game because of that. It creates a lot of impactful moments for those themes, and so it does a good job. Kind of going back to what I was speaking on before, the issue is when a concept doesn't have that much impact on the story. And because of how great the themes behind Clive's story are, it makes the story's weaknesses very glaring to me, and that's particularly when it comes to the side character. This is where Barnabas comes in. He is a perfect example of what I'm trying to explain here.
What care you for these worthless creatures? They are nothing. Weak from the moment of their conception, ever longing for power not theirs to command, they turn unfailingly upon themselves. Like sheep, they roam in filthy flocks, eager to trample those few gifted a fleece of gold. Or that they might feel contentment with their pitiful existence.
Barnabas Tharmer is introduced relatively early in the game. Right after the flashback with Clive, we see him plotting with future antagonists of the game, which signals that, yeah, he's definitely not going to be on our side. We don't see him interact with our main characters very much until later, however, we do see him in a lot of scenes on his own. Oftentimes, his interactions with other characters can feel very distant. He feels cold, almost like he's never acting real around anyone. Take this one scene where he's just had his time in bed with Benedicta here, and after they're done, it's funny to say that, he seems to start talking about the world, wars, and humanity, and then he starts talking about Benedicta, about how she once loved another character we know of. It's very unexpected to see a scene like this in a Final Fantasy game, but it actually does a great job in showing his character. Just speaking about very strange topics after doing such an intimate act. And I mean, Benedicta does know what he's talking about. After all, they work together. She does eventually tame him, so overall it's not too strange for her. However, during this moment, you can see that while they are physically intimate, no matter what kind of relationship they have with each other, it's not really emotionally intimate in any real way, at least not to him. And this is sort of representative of his feelings with any character in the game. He doesn't tend to care for people overall. Anytime we see him somewhere, even when he's about to enter into a war, he very quickly leaves. He has no heart in it for anyone, and this is despite the fact that he's a king, a most powerful king in Valisthea apparently. I guess it's not that big of a surprise knowing how people in power are. I mean, usually they care a little, if at least for their own self-benefit. Not him. Now, he does like some things, but only a very few amount. We do see him spying on Clive a few times, but eventually he fully confronts him, talking about Clive's status as mythos. Now, if you don't know, and if you don't, this might be a crazy shock to you, Clive is actually a vessel created to house a god's magic. I know, it's crazy, but he's able to absorb icon powers, the whole thing about him killing his brother is triggered by this fact, and he experiences a lot of funky shit in relation to this god, so this idea was foreshadowed. It's just kind of random here because I'm just now bringing it up. Anyway, Barnabas is meant to be the beginning of answering what the fuck this means for Clive. To make a long story short, Ultima's created humanity with the partial ability to use magic, with the goal of using that magic to revive his race of people. And this is something that Barnabas wholeheartedly supports, as he is a worshipper of Ultima. But see, Ultima, I've said his name like 3 times now, but he's realized something, especially as of recent. Humanity in this world kinda sucks. Well, they suck a lot. The Empire, and many elsewhere, have essentially created a large bigotry and slave chain for the people who gain house magic. In this world, it's treated more as a curse, as using magic slowly kills you, and so they're used as tools by higher classes. It's pretty fucked up, and now that Clive is resisting his fate to become the magic vessel he's supposed to be, Ultima comes to the conclusion that consciousness is the fault of this. That if people weren't conscious, then everything would be at peace and go as planned. So his new goal is essentially to make everyone into zombies, and that starts with Barnabas's kingdom. Barnabas is so ready to embrace this idea that he already did even before the game started. Barnabas already is a zombie. He hasn't lost his consciousness, but he's immortal. I guess he got the good side of being a zombie as a reward for worshipping Ultima for his entire life. But not only is Barnabas ready to carry out Ultima's plan and give up his power for it, after all, if you don't know, he is an icon himself, Odin, one of the coolest fucking Final Fantasy summons ever, but he's also ready to give up his own consciousness. And we can see this commitment in his kingdom Waloed. When we visit it as Clive, it's empty, cold, lifeless, and lifeless literally. The only thing there being the most vicious creatures we've come across so far, the conscious humans that Ultima wants to fill the world with, and, well, the only conscious thing there, Barnabas. And Barnabas himself is a dedicated warrior to Ultima, which absolutely means he is incredibly strong, arguably the most capable icon other than Clive. Sure, he doesn't have Bahamut's sheer power, but Odin does the most creative shit out of any of the characters. He creates giant barriers. His horse can be created into a personal servant to him. He has multiple forms that he can transform into and out of, including his full Odin form, which again, he transforms in and out of at will, which is not a very easy thing to do according to the lore of this game. And we never see him really do any of this stuff up until his battle with Clive. Also, he can convince him to stop resisting and join the cause. It's all for this outcome, all for Ultima, and all for Mythos. And it's probably the most insane kind of power we see in this game. So, I guess that begs the question, why? Why is he like this? Well, that, unfortunately, is a question that is not really answered. Well, they try to answer it. They put a lot of implications into scenes we see him in, and we're going to talk about those scenes. And you can read up on his story in the in-game archive, but as far as it goes in the actual story, no, that's it. After you fight him, Clive takes his power, and that's where his story ends. Ultima takes the main villain role. This is such a bummer, because Barnabas is one of the most interesting characters in the game. I hope everything I've talked about shows that the build-up and the characterization of him are both really good. I mean, during his fight with Clive, they're debating about their places in the world, their beliefs about human existence. It feels like a personal clash of ideologies, and from what I've read, that's sort of meant to be the entire idea behind the relationship. Clive is a freedom fighter for humanity, a very grounded and humble character who works with the people, while Barnabas is a powerful king who lives by himself and worships a god who also hates humanity just like him. Clive fights to avenge the dead, Barnabas lives forever. These are some light comparisons. It goes deeper. See, he, like Clive, has also gone through shit. He lost his mother to a rival religion at a very young age, which meant he had to live through his teen years alone. He worked himself to the level he's at now, even taking the throne of Waloed for himself, and after, again, like I mentioned before, being known as the strongest ruler of Valisthea. I mean, does that journey sound familiar? Clive went through a very similar route of losing people he loved, being alone for many years, and then eventually rising to a type of power. In fact, one could think that Clive could have very well gained a similar outlook to Barnabas. I mean, after all, he's seen the worst sides of humanity. The difference? Well, Clive has friends. He had people to remind him of who he really is. Barnabas? He has Ultima, and almost in a cruel, twisted way compared to Clive's friends, Ultima fills the hole that he needs.
Relax, Your Majesty.
We see another scene of Barnabas in his room with Benedicta, except things are different. He's worshipping her, kneeling under her naked body as she speaks about the power of the icons, his own power in regards to humanity. She then transforms into Hugo Kupka and talks about consciousness in relations to humans. Kupka then turns into Ultima, and he begins to talk about his plan of what he wants to do to humanity. If you haven't noticed, Barnabas has been interacting with Ultima this entire time, worshipping him in this very uncomfortable way, uncomfortable to watch. However, as this scene goes on, Barnabas agrees to be an accomplice towards his plan.
We shall unite with Mythos and bring forth a new world. So long as our vessel remains unclaimed by humanity.
It shall be done, Master. My will is yours.
Now, This scene may be strange, maybe the strangest out of any Final Fantasy scene we've ever seen in the franchise. However, this without a doubt is one of the best scenes in the game because of how subtle it's being with Barnabas. He loves very few humanitarian things. He's so lonely that the few things he does love have turned into a perverted obsession like we see here. To lay it out flat, this is the way Barnabas copes with his loneliness. It's the reward for his actions. It's why he's able to continue doing what he does. Despite the really great dialogue he has with Clive during his boss fight, this scene alone is probably the most we see out of his character, and it's fantastic. I just wish we could have seen more. And that right there is Final Fantasy XVI's biggest problem, because Barnabas Thommer is a really interesting character. He has this incredible boss fight, my favorite in the game. Any cutscene he's in, icon or not, is immediately captivating, and the performance that David Meccan gives is perfect. The little bit of story we get from him is impactful, but I just wanted more. It's not to say that his entire character would need to be redone, not at all. To me, it's just where he is in the story. Ultima is kind of lacking in personality, which I'm pretty sure is the point. Initially, I thought Barnabas was meant to be the personality in his stead, and I think that would have been the best option. Him acting as a reoccurring villain would have been an easy thing to do since he already has that impeccable screen presence. Right before you get to Elude, you have this unbeatable boss fight with him where he cuts the fucking sea in half so he can have a duel with Clive. It's a really great moment and shows how cunning he is with his abilities. However, it's kinda short-sighted by the fact that his boss fight is only like 2 missions away, and you do get a new power by then, but I don't think it's as impactful as they were hoping. Maybe having a fight somewhere in Act 2, just to introduce him earlier so you have more time to establish who he is, and then give him even more character moments with Clive later. I could talk about changes that I do forever, so I won't. But that can be applied to a lot of things in the game, especially a lot of the side characters. I loved Jill, but I wish we saw a little more from her personality and her background. A lot of it's implied, and it's great whenever we see it, but that just adds on to my reasoning. Cid is a really lovely guy, but apparently he had a past with both Benedicta and Barnabas. Remember when Barnabas was talking about how Benedicta had a past lover? What was that about? I replayed the game, and I saw glimpses of Benedicta regretting her actions against Cid, Cid missing what they had. I could see this stuff, and I want to see more, but they're not giving it to me. This game has loads of potential, and when it plays on it, it's so incredible. Clive is one of my favorite Final Fantasy characters ever, and shockingly, Torgal the Hound is also probably up there. He has some amazing moments. I love that little guy. Whenever this game dives into its lore, like the DLC dungeon about the ancients, their crystal, and how Ultima destroyed it all, it's fascinating. It's again why I can never truly say this game is bad, because the people who made this knew what they were doing. These characters, the imagery, the choices, it came from somewhere real. I just wanted more of it.